Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Dais, a podcast about the stories taking place in and around El Paso County, Colorado. I'm your host, Scott Anderson, and today I am joined by Sara Lobato, the Pikes Peak Enterprise Zone Administrator. How are you doing today, Sara?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you today, Scott?
Good. Thank you for coming over here today. I really appreciate it. Before we get started today, I wanted to let people know that if they are interested in more stories about people doing good in and around El Paso County, or hearing from county leadership about local government priorities and how they operate, you can find additional episodes of this podcast on your podcast platform of choice. But to get started today, Sara, I was wondering if you could give me some background about yourself and how you ended up here with El Paso County.
I would love to. Thank you. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I grew up on a small family-owned dairy farm and then left for college. Spent 4 years after college working at a credit union in Madison, Wisconsin, and then finally found myself in Colorado about 14 years ago. I found employment quite quickly with Springs Rescue Mission, working in their income processing team. I had learned about El Paso County and the Enterprise Zone program during my time with Springs Rescue Mission, and actually joined El Paso County 10 years ago this month.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's a big anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun, and it's gone by so quickly.
Not a lot. I feel like these days, especially, not a lot of people get to their 10-year anniversary at an organization for any number of reasons, right? So that's pretty cool. Awesome. I'm glad you're here because I've only been here a couple of years, and it's been really interesting. This is your first government job. I mean, you've been here for 10 years now, but first job with a government entity, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So how has that been different than working, I mean, you in the nonprofit sector or, even in the private sector? You said you worked for a credit union. How has that kind of been different for you?
There's a lot of similarities between the nonprofit world and the government world. I think, the ultimate goal is to serve the members of that credit union or to make our community better through the work of that nonprofit organization. And again, local government is very similar to that similar scope of activity where we're here to serve the businesses and residents within El Paso County.
Awesome. No, that's great. So your role falls within the Economic Development Department here at El Paso County. Can you share, kind of talk about that role and how it works within the Economic Development Department?
Absolutely. Well, our office actually takes a holistic approach to economic development. We have three main focus areas, including community development initiatives, affordable housing finance, and business incentives. And my role within the group is working with business incentives and specifically the Enterprise Zone program. This is a Colorado state income tax credit program that's managed by the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, or also known as OEDIT. And it's administered locally here by El Paso County's Economic Development Department.
So one of the things that just happened this past week was Small Business Week here in El Paso County. Can you talk about how your role interacts specifically with small business as it relates to the Enterprise Zone?
Yes, great question. The Enterprise Zone program is a state income tax credit program that is available to any for-profit business in Colorado that's both state and federally legal. So these businesses can earn state income tax credits for investing in equipment for their business, hiring new employees, providing health insurance for employees, paying for qualified training expenses, increased research and development costs, and renovating a vacant building for commercial purpose. So there's just a variety of applications where small businesses, large businesses, medium-sized businesses can earn Enterprise Zone tax credits and reduce their state income tax liability come tax time the following year.
So for someone who does not own a business or run a business, I'm only a part of a cog in an organization, how does that apply to, say, someone who might want to start a business? Like, why is this something that they should be looking into?
Absolutely. Great question. The Enterprise Zone program does require that businesses complete what's called an Enterprise Zone pre-certification application. So as we're meeting with new businesses, prospective businesses, it's very important that they complete this pre-certification application early on within their business startup ensuring that they can earn these enterprise zone tax credits. Without that pre-certification in place, unfortunately, they're unable to earn the enterprise zone tax credits until it's completed.
Okay. So what all is involved in completing that application? Like, what are the kind of things that going into it people should know to make sure that they can complete this application and have it ready they can earn these tax credits?
The application process is very simple and easy to navigate. The application is completely online on OEdit's website, and it asks just a few data points of information. What is the business name, address, an EIN of the business, as well as contact information for the business representative and any taxpayer who may be helping that business with their accounting or tax purposes.
And how are businesses able to take advantage of tax credits? I mean, I know for me personally, when I do my taxes every year, I know there are certain credits that I can get to kind of help offset. I don't know if offset is the correct word. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but to offset some of that tax liability. How does that work for a business, let's say?
Great question. Enterprise zone tax credits can allow the business to reduce their state income tax liability. So that means once they submit that enterprise zone certification for any enterprise zone tax credits earned, they can claim those tax credits on their state tax return at tax time annually. And if there are any tax credits they are not eligible to claim in that particular year, if, say, for instance, they don't have the state tax liability to offset, the state does allow for businesses to carry forward any unused portion of those tax credits anywhere between 5 and 14 years, depending on the tax credit earned. So there's opportunity to carry those forward and use them in future tax years to offset that state tax liability.
So one thing I do know about the enterprise zone, I don't know a lot, but I know a little bit, is that it's for more than just for-profit businesses, right? Like it also applies to nonprofits as well.
That's correct. The enterprise zone program essentially has two different programmatic arms to it. As you said, Scott, the first is those enterprise zone tax credits for those for-profit businesses located and operating in the enterprise zone boundaries. And the second is what's called the Enterprise Zone Contribution Project Program, where eligible nonprofits can apply to earn enterprise zone contribution project status for up to a 5-year term. And once approved, any donor that makes a contribution to the organization can earn a state tax credit equal to 25% of their monetary donation to the organization's efforts.
Okay, so this is something that applies to individuals if they are making donations to, is it specifically to nonprofits within the enterprise zone, or is it to any nonprofit?
Great question. At this time, it's enterprise zone contribution project organizations that are located within the enterprise zone boundaries and working to improve the economic conditions of those enterprise zone areas that typically have high unemployment or low per capita income. Okay,
so if I were someone who was interested in donating to one of these organizations, can I find a list of them on a website somewhere, or how can I identify these organizations that are part of the grouping of projects?
Yes, we do have a listing of all currently approved contribution project organizations in the Pikes Peak region on El Paso County Economic Development's webpage. We currently have 45 different projects currently approved, and you can find a listing of all of those organizations on our website.
And how do organizations become part of that group? I mean, is it limited into the number of organizations that can be part of it, or do they just have to apply and meet the requirements for that?
Yes, there are different requirements as far as eligibility and participation in the Enterprise Zone program. I do work with prospective contribution project organizations, those nonprofits, to identify eligibility to participate in the program. They essentially need to be demonstrating what the organization is doing that's new or different over a 5-year term. I then partner with them to complete a proposal. It goes through a 3-phase review and approval process. And once they have that third and final approval from the State Economic Development Commission, they can then start fundraising through the Enterprise Zone, and their donors can earn those Enterprise Zone tax credits.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So for you specifically, this is a you question. It's not about the enterprise zone. why do you think that these type of programs are so important to the vitality of a county or a municipality?
Great question. Truly, the Enterprise Zone program was designed back in 1986 to encourage development in both urban and rural areas of the state that are experiencing an economic distress. So these business tax credits and contribution projects are really working to improve the economic conditions of the zone and creating conditions that will help attract, expand, and retain businesses within the Enterprise Zone.
And, you don't have to, I guess, name any or specific business or organization, but since you've been doing this for the last 10 years, what have you seen in terms of the outcomes that have been achieved by organizations or businesses taking advantage of this program?
I think a lot of for-profit businesses that are earning those tax credits, they've been able to bring on additional employees had they not had access to those Enterprise Zone tax credits for hiring those net new employees. And additionally, those nonprofit organizations, specifically those capital campaigns that are more visible, you can see the completion of new facilities that they're constructing in and around the Pikes Peak region and all throughout Colorado.
Yeah, one of the things that's hard to sort of quantify is the help that these programs provided, especially during like the pandemic, right? Can you talk a little bit about how you worked with certain businesses during the pandemic and kind of coming out of that to, I guess, maybe help maintain themselves just as a business that was operating?
Great question. We did, along with the state of Colorado, create a new contribution project for the purpose of providing grant funding to businesses in El Paso and Teller counties to help them not only survive the pandemic, but also to ensure that their success in the future. Yeah. During the pandemic, El Paso County stood up a brand new contribution project to support small businesses. So through generous contributions from Colorado taxpayers, we were able to support small businesses in the region with grant assistance of up to $7,500. Additionally, we increased our outreach through a webinar opportunity to learn more about the Enterprise Zone program and how small businesses could apply and complete that Enterprise Zone pre-certification to ensure they can earn Enterprise Zone tax credits for eligible business activities. If you're curious, you can find a recording of that webinar as well as a slide deck on our website.
Great. And then before we end the conversation today, I just wanted to ask if there's anything else that you think would be important for listeners to know.
Yes. If you're interested in earning Enterprise Zone tax credits for your business, it's very important to complete that Enterprise Zone pre-certification each year before beginning any eligible activity. I can certainly help you with completing that pre-certification and answering any questions or concerns you may have. We also have a webinar that resides, again, on El Paso County's website if you'd like to see a quick tutorial of how to complete that.
Awesome. And then if people did want that help from you specifically, like how can they reach out to you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Email is great. Okay. I can be reached at Sara, Sara, Lobato, L-O-B, as in boy, A-T-O, at elpasoco.com. So Sara Lobato at elpasoco.com.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Sara. I appreciate you taking the time today and for all the work that you do here in El Paso County to help out small businesses and everyone else, it sounds like. So thank you for being here.
All right. Thanks for having me.
If you are interested in listening to additional episodes of Beyond the Dais, be sure to look for us on Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.